Two cats, same species, same instincts, same sharp eyes watching the world from a windowsill, and yet, on average, one of them is likely to live years longer than the other. Cats who stay indoors tend to live significantly longer than cats who spend most of their time outside. The exact numbers vary depending on the study, the region, the risks nearby, but the pattern holds almost everywhere. And the moment you hear that, your instinct is probably to feel a little guilty. Like keeping a cat inside means giving it a smaller life, a duller one. But here's what almost nobody tells you. Living indoors doesn't just change how long a cat lives, it quietly reshapes everything about how that cat ages, how it behaves, and how it connects to you. In ways so subtle you could spend years living beside them and never once notice. And by the end of this, you'll understand the one hidden advantage of that indoor life. The one almost every owner overlooks, right up until the day it actually matters. Let's start with the biggest consequence, because it's bigger than most people realize. When you remove a cat from traffic, from predators, from fights with other animals, from parasites, toxic plants, extreme weather, unknown diseases carried by strange cats, you're not just adding a few extra years onto the end of their life. You're changing the entire shape of that life. Outdoor cats often die suddenly. A car, a fight, an illness that spreads fast and goes unnoticed until it's too late. Their story frequently ends abruptly, sometimes before the owner even realizes something was wrong. Indoor cats, on the other hand, get to walk through every stage of aging, slowly, one small shift at a time. Kittenhood fades into that chaotic adolescent phase. Adolescence settles into the quiet confidence of adulthood. And eventually, adulthood begins its slow drift into something older. A little more sleep, a little less jumping. A coat that changes texture so gradually you'd struggle to say exactly when it started. For an outdoor cat, that whole arc might never happen. For an indoor cat, you get a front row seat to it, which sounds wonderful. And mostly, it is. But surviving longer creates a challenge almost nobody prepares for. Because the longer a life goes on, the more subtle its changes become. And the easier it is to just stop noticing them. So let's talk about where that life actually happens. An indoor cat might spend a decade, sometimes two, inside the exact same rooms. Same windows, same hallway, same patch of sun on the same afternoon. And because their physical world is so consistent, tiny details inside it start to matter enormously. The specific ledge they climb to watch birds, the corner they disappear into when the vacuum comes out, the sound of one particular cabinet that means food is coming, the chair that somewhere along the way quietly became theirs. To you, this might just look like the same house they've always lived in. To them, it's an entire landscape, mapped in extraordinary detail, refined over thousands of ordinary days. And this is where a common assumption quietly falls apart. The idea that cats just entertain themselves, that they're low maintenance by nature and don't really need much from their surroundings. In reality, predictability can be deeply comforting to a cat, but that same predictability, without enough variations, can slide into something else: monotony. A small space isn't automatically a boring one, but it can become one, if nothing inside it ever changes. Their territory might only be a few rooms wide. Psychologically, though, it can be as rich and layered as any outdoor world, or as flat and empty as a waiting room. And the difference usually comes down to details most owners never think to notice. Now here's where it gets a little more personal. Because you're not just part of the furniture in that landscape. Over years, you actually become part of it. In an indoor cat's world, you are not simply the person who fills the bowl. You're a recurring, predictable, deeply familiar presence. Your footsteps on the stairs, the exact time you wake up, the tone of your voice when you're tired versus when you're relaxed, the smell of your jacket when you walk in, the specific way you settle into your favorite chair at night. All of it gets woven into their daily map, repeated so many times that it stops being background and noise and starts being something they organize their whole day around. This is why indoor cats often develop such quiet, specific ways of communicating with the one or two people they trust most. A particular chirp, saved just for you. A slow blink from across the room, choosing to sleep near your side of the bed instead of anywhere else in the house. It's easy to buy into the stereotype that cats are aloof, independent, emotionally self-sufficient. But what actually develops over years of indoor life is something quieter than a dog's obvious devotion, and slower. Built not from a handful of dramatic moments, but from thousands of small repeated ones. And yet, this closeness creates its own complication, because a cat can feel completely safe with you, fully bonded to you, and still be missing something that safety alone can never provide. Here's the uncomfortable part. Safety and a good life are not automatically the same thing. It's tempting to frame the whole indoor versus outdoor question as a simple trade. Dangerous freedom on one side, safe captivity on the other. As if removing the danger is where the responsibility ends. It isn't. When you take away the outside world, you also take away the things that world used to provide for free. Movement, hunting practice, unpredictable smells and new textures, the small daily challenge of finding food or exploring somewhere new. Indoors, none of that shows up on its own. It has to be replaced. Through play that mimics stalking and catching. Through scratching surfaces, vertical space to climb, novelty introduced on purpose, choices the cat actually gets to make for itself. And when that replacement doesn't happen, the result rarely looks like an emergency. It looks like normal life, a cat who sleeps a bit more each year, a cat who gains weight slowly and so slowly that a little chubby quietly becomes just how they are. A cat who seems calm when really calm has slid into something closer to disengaged. None of this is about spoiling a cat with luxuries. It's about replacing opportunities the outside world used to hand them for free. And once you see that, you start to understand why the greatest consequence of an indoor life isn't really about danger avoided at all. It's about something almost invisible, something that only reveals its value after years have already gone by. So here's the promise, finally paying off. Years of sharing a small, controlled, repetitive environment with your cat do something remarkable. Without you ever trying, they let you build an incredibly detailed, almost unconscious picture of what normal looks like for that one specific animal. Not cats in general. Yours. You know where they nap at 2 in the afternoon, roughly how fast they eat, how many times a day they jump onto the counter, how loud their greeting is when you walk through the door, how they stand in the litter box, how thoroughly they groom their back legs. None of that feels like information while it's happening. It just feels like living with your cat. But underneath all those small, forgettable moments, a baseline is quietly forming. A version of normal so specific, only you would ever notice when it shifts. And here's the part often most people don't think about. Cats are, by instinct, extremely good at hiding when something's off. It's an old survival trait. In the wild, looking weak or sick makes you a target, so a cat in discomfort often doesn't act sick at all. It just adjusts, quietly. A little less movement here, a little more sleep there, nothing that would ever stand out to a stranger, which means the usual signs people wait for, limping, crying out, obvious distress, often show up late. sometimes far too late. What shows up early isn't a symptom, it's a difference. And the only way to catch a difference is to already know in detail what normal was supposed to look like. That's exactly what those thousands of repetitive indoor days quietly built for you, without you ever realizing you were building anything at all. Picture it the way it actually tends to happen. Because it's almost never dramatic. Your cat doesn't collapse, they don't cry out. There's no single unmistakable moment where something is clearly wrong. Instead, you just notice that 3 nights in a row, they didn't jump onto the bed the way they have for years. To anyone visiting your home, that would be nothing. Maybe not even worth mentioning. But to you, it's a broken pattern. Out of thousands of nights you've watched them make that exact same jump without a second thought, and one missed jump, on its own, still might mean nothing. A stiff morning, a full stomach, nothing at all, but a pattern that keeps not happening. That's different information entirely. This is the real, hidden advantage of an indoor life. Not simply that your cat is protected from cars and predators and disease, but that living so closely, for so long, inside such a consistent world, gives you a kind of fluency in your cat's normal that would be almost impossible to build any other way. It turns thousands of ordinary, forgettable days into a record. An unspoken map of what healthy, comfortable, and content actually look like for this one particular animal. And as your cat moves into their later years, that record becomes something you can actually use. Not to panic over every small thing, but to notice calmly when the pattern itself starts to change. Because one unusual moment isn't the signal. A changing pattern is. So the next time your cat curls into that same spot on the couch for what feels like the 1,000th time, or leaves a little food in the bowl, or takes one extra second before a jump they made 1,000 times before, try not to see it as just another quiet, uneventful moment in an ordinary indoor life. See it as part of something you've been building all along, one ordinary day at a time, a picture only you know well enough to notice the moment it starts to change. Because sometimes the most protective thing about a life spent close to home isn't the danger it keeps out. It's the familiarity it lets you keep. Familiarity precise enough to notice in time exactly when something isn't quite normal anymore.